Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna be featuring the rather gorgeous looking AL Littorio. As her name, Littorio, it's one of the new crossover ships. Now, before I get into the ship itself, I do have to highlight one rather important thing. This is not an Impero. It is very much a Roma. It is basically a carbon copy of a Roma. In fact, I'll get into detail how much of a carbon copy of a Roma it is later on in this video. And I feel like I really needed to clarify this because Wargaming themselves have not been very clear on this matter. In fact, in internal documentation, it's been called the Impero. Or well, it said Impero and then within brackets it says AL Littorio. So CCs in general, internally, everyone thought, well, the Littorio is actually going to be a Impero, which would have made this crossover much more interesting because that means a completely new, rather unique ship. For those not aware, the Impero has semi-armor piercing shells, it has a crawling smoke like the Italian cruisers. Basically, it's a Roma with a twist, and it sounds very interesting. And I can't really comment on the gameplay because I haven't actually played it, because I can't stream gameplay. I can't stream my testing anymore, so I don't really test ships much behind the covers, so to say. Regardless, though, I was well aware of the characteristics of the ship, so I was actually pretty hyped for the Littorio because of this. And then later on, Wargaming accidentally actually leaked an announcement. It was meant to go out to the super testers. Basically, we have credited you with blah 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 ships. And in the same leak, it also said Impero, and once again in brackets Al Littorio. So now everyone else also thought that this Azerlane Littorio was going to be the Impero, and of course everyone, there's just been leaks and there people can check them out with the extended tech tree and so forth. Everyone was aware of the upcoming smoke crawling SEP battleship, and everyone also thought that the Littorio was going to be this Impero. Now, Wargaming decided not to clarify this in any way whatsoever. Not to inform anyone, not to tell anyone. In fact, Little White Mouse, I saw her make a thread about it. She was actually rather pissed off about it, for good reason, because she had probably prepared one of those long, huge reviews where she goes into detail on everything. And yeah, it's a Roma, so everything prepared isn't there. So I just wanted to get that out of the way and clarify so people don't go and buy this thinking, oh wow, I'm gonna check out the new Impero. No, this thing is absolutely 100% the Roma. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it is a rather lazy thing. In fact, one could even call it a bit of a downgrade because you can't buy the Kobayashi camo for the Littorio, but you can buy the Makoto Kobayashi camo for the Roma. And the reason, of course, you would want that camo for the Roma is because it gives you plus 20% credits per battle, which makes Roma an absolutely absurdly good money grinder. Still, Littorio, or, well, Roma. Littorio's armor is god tier. To put it quite simply, Littorio's armor is excellently good. Before the Soviet battleships were in the game, it was some of the best armor in the game. Now it's just good armor. The nose is 32, overmatchable, but you do have basically half an icebreaker. You do have a bit of cheek protection that is 130 millimeters. The deck armor is 45. The upper belt is 70 millimeters, which means even those high-hitting, heavy caliber HE will not be able to pen your broadsides. And the Citadel armor is 375 with an additional belt of 40mm internal armor. It's basically layered, or well, yeah, basically layered armor. So you have 375 plus 40, which gives you a lot of tankiness in every way. Besides that, the ship also is incredibly stealthy. 11.7 km concealment. Sadly, the air detectability is 8.7, which is less fun, especially because your AA is the classic Italian AA. And when I say classic Italian AA, we're talking 4.6 kilometers of range AA, which does, well, rather pitiful damage. I mean, the mid-range is okay-ish, but basically you're gonna see a tier 6 carrier bully me around in this game, and that's one of the reasons why I selected this game, because it shows you just how much of a joke the AA is when a tier 6 carrier just ignores you and just keeps striking you repeatedly. You are not gonna have a good time. Now, AA in general has been nerfed really hard in World of Warships. It's nowhere near what it used to be back in the day. But this ship in particular is very, very much vulnerable to any sort of carrier strikes. Besides the armor, the turning circle on the ship is decent at 810 meters. The rudder shift is actually not the end of the world at 15.6. That is if you build full fire reduction, which you kind of want to do, especially since you don't have access to the Soviet fast damage con. You have your standard damage con instead. The turret traverse is really good on the ship. If you run the expert marksman, you get it down to 26.9 seconds, which is basically cruiser turret traverse. This is really nice when you push nose into situations. You can easily switch targets, which you will also see me do a fair bit in this game. This is kind of offset though by the fact that the guns have rather sad range. If your spotter plane isn't up, well, you can see it, it's 18.1 kilometers, which when you're top tier like in this game is okay-ish, but when you're up against tier 10s, it's not a very fun experience at all. And the guns have incredibly good shell velocity with very little air drag at 850 meters per second on the AP. However, the dispersion is all over the place. Like this ship is one of the trolliest ships in the game, and you're actually more likely to citadel cruisers in situations like you just saw, where the cruiser is angled enough that your AP manages to arm and explode inside the ship. Because otherwise you're just going to be getting overpens, if you even can hit the target, which is by no means guaranteed, because as mentioned, the dispersion is very, very trolly. This Selena seems to have a death wish. He's really, really hungry at just trying to kill me. I'm trying to stop this push they're trying to do on this flank by basically parking my Littorio right in front of them and preventing them from pushing in. Don't ask about my in-game name, by the way. I let chat vote for the in-game name, and this is what they chose because they love me so very, very much, and they know my high opinion of the carrier rework and what a successful design it is. Okay, I can't go any further. Yeah, anyways, they're trolling basically. Nose in, the Roma or the Littorio is incredibly tanky, but you don't want to brawl in it. It has a huge citadel. It has a huge citadel far high above the waterline. If you get broadside in this thing, you will absolutely be citadeled if they have enough penetration to punch through it. The guns are also only 381 millimeters, which means you're not going to be overmatching 27 millimeter. Which means any heavy cruisers are gonna have a really easy time of just tanking your shells. Especially as switching to HE isn't that impressive. The HE alpha is 5.1k with a 24% fire chance, which is honestly closer to cruiser fire chance than battleship fire chance. And more importantly, with your dispersion, it's not like you can count on any sort of consistent damage there either. So ultimately, how do you play this thing? Well, very much we're careful about your broadsides. You see me try to fight situations or pick fights in situations where I get to shoot broadsides, ideally, and well, I'm angled myself, but that was a good example of the dispersion, and here you see AP bombers coming in. AP bombers are a great design, by the way, said no one ever, because they inflict damage that you cannot heal. So not only do they do a lot of damage, they also make it so that you can't heal the damage to extra piss you off. Fantastic work there. So the carrier comes in with his tier 6 bombers. I reinforce the side he's coming in from. I shoot that 2 planes. Doesn't really stop him much. And he citadels me on the first pass. And now he swings around for a second pass. And you'd think a tier 6 plane or tier 6 squadron spending this much time in this so-called strong mid-range would suffer from this, but he actually gets to get a second drop off as well. And as I mentioned, the ship does have a large citadel, so the second drop is a citadel as well, and we cannot heal any of the damage that we just received. So pretty rough harassment from the carrier on this flank, and it's forced me to retreat more than I would actually like to, because I would love to play more aggressive here on this side. In fact, I'm pinging my team to maybe help me a bit, because technically we outnumber them quite heavily. We are 4 versus 3, and the carrier is actually supporting us as well, just like their carrier is supporting them. If my team would push in a bit more aggressive, I would happily charge in. The problem is I can't afford to get myself into a brawl, because the Gneiser now, if he goes nose in, there's not a whole lot I can do. And more importantly, the NC has got a really comfortable position, which means I can't really get him his broadside from either flank. And looking at the minimap, you can also see that the Littorio is slowly repositioning towards this flank. He's trying to reinforce it. So this makes any sort of push very, very dangerous. I want to be in a situation, once again, that I'm close enough that my guns have some sort of consistency. That's very important in a Roma. You've seen the dispersion. You want to be close enough that you can get some sort of consistency out of the guns. And generally speaking, where you will be taking some hits, because that's really one of the great strengths of this ship. The ability to withstand damage, the ability to take hits. The problem is they have a fair few ships. They have 2 ships with torpedoes, and they have a Perth. Perth is very, very strong when someone tries to push into him, if he's got a lot of teammate support, just as he got on this flank here. And more importantly, because my teammates are so very hesitant to push in, it's making life a lot harder. We're down on points right now, with the loss of the Gajamada, so I feel convinced that I have to make some sort of move here, because there's 7 minutes remaining, and picking up a few kills could be vital to winning this match. I managed to get undetected behind the island, and the idea is that before the Littorio comes around, maybe I can full speed rush and get the broadside of the North Carolina while killing off the Gneiser now on the way in. And the carrier planes pop up. So there goes that plan, and I basically hit the brakes, and because there's no way I can do it. I get no way I can surprise them anymore, because his spotting will deny me. More importantly, the Perth is there, and he smokes up, and because it's a Perth, you have to acknowledge the fact that he also has torpedoes. And I only have 40k health remaining, and I can't really heal any of the damage because it's been citadel damage. So I suspect there might be torpedoes coming in, which would be even additional citadel damage, which would greatly limit my tankiness. So instead, I just hit the brakes, and I try to get reverse fast enough so that I will be angled against the Littorio that I suspect is pushing around the corner. This is important in the Roma. Always, always maintain your angling. Do not give your broadside. A third person is targeting me now, so I'm suspecting the Littorio is actually just about to come around the corner, so I'm turning as fast as I can to try to get my broadside angled against him. Also, of course, reversing from any incoming torpedo planes while we do so. Carrier spots me again. Carrier is actually kind of overextending here. I popped the spotter plane trying to get any vision of him. I hope to pick off the Gneiser now, because getting rid of him would be so important to reduce the damage coming in from that angle. And Littorio dispersion decides no chance whatsoever. Enemy Littorio did push around the flank as I predicted, and they are crossfiring me a fair bit, but I do have the island protecting my sides, which is once again the most important thing. As long as you're nose in like this, you don't really have too much to worry in the Roma or in the Littorio. It is so resistant to any sort of nose in damage, unless they have a Yamato or someone capable of penning 50mm HE, which is basically your 45mm deck armor. I try my luck on getting any sort of citadels on the Ruyo, but the stupidly fast shells with the long fuse time means that my shells just punch straight through the entire tier 6 carrier, and I get nothing but overpens. I need that guy to be angled to have any chance of dealing consistent damage. I damage con my turret in fear of losing it, and unfortunately they actually got a double fire on me right after I used my damage con. Even with fire prevention, that's actually fairly rare, but of course it does happen at the time when I needed it the least. I pick off the Gneiser now, which is good. One of the fires run out. I do want to play more aggressive, and my Bismarck has finally decided to push in, and he's actually selected a really, really good target, and that is the Littorio. I did mention the last thing you want to do in the Littorio is brawl. The Littorio could have potentially reversed and gotten out of there, but he decided to make a full broadside turn to disengage. And this is the last thing you want to be doing. I don't get a Citadel, but I do get 4 pens, getting a high caliber and a Confederate, and a Bismarck at that range will have more than enough pen to do what he just did there, which is punch straight through that broadside armor and Citadel him. Littorio is a poor brawler, not because the turret traverse is poor, or because the armor is poor, but because the Citadel is so extremely vulnerable that if you're caught in any sort of broadside, it's very easy to pick you off. It looks like my Bismarck is actually gearing up to push full speed. I'm looking on the minimap, seeing is he going to slow down? Because we have taken the points lead at this point, and there's only 3 minutes remaining, so I'm a bit hesitant about pushing in. The NC has reversed further than I expected, and I'm giving a bit too much broadside, so I'm instantly angling back in, trying to mitigate the AP, and my angled armor does bounce it, while at the same time providing a better angle against the AP bombers that are once again harassing me. He hits me but only gets a pen, and Bismarck is in fact playing very aggressively on the minimap, so I'm gonna keep playing aggressive. NC gives a lot of broadside, but the legendary Roma dispersion accomplishes absolutely nothing. However, here we get a good example of that turret traverse. 26.9 seconds. The Ruyo is trying to run away from the Bismarck, which is exactly what I was hoping for, and that means I have a chance to catch him off guard as he pushes into me. I slow down to try to dodge the torpedoes. I do dodge one of them, and I'm hoping that the second squad will die before getting another drop on me. Ruyo keeps pushing up, and he keeps staying in vision by the Bismarck, so we're actually gonna go for this kill. I mentioned if he's broadside, I have no chance of citadeling, but when he is angled like this, the stupid shell velocity and the pen actually becomes an advantage, and the Littorio manages to punch straight through his nose and double citadel him. I swing the third turret into action as well, and I take, at this point, even this ship manages to land, and I get a Kraken with that 5th kill on that flank. At this point, I think my best choice would have been to reverse. There's only 1 minute 20 seconds remaining, but I actually thought that my Bismarck would keep pushing, because he'd been playing so aggressively until this point. I thought he would keep pushing into the perf, but rather to my surprise, as I'm already committing, I ping him to help him, but he decided no, he's just gonna stop there and park. So now the perf gets to free farm me, and this is of course the worst kind of situation. The game is about to run out, but there is absolutely nothing I can do about it. I'm trying to get some sort of pins in on the North Carolina, but no ability to overmatch, and honestly only landing 4 out of 6 shells. Secondaries, especially without manual secondaries, are not going to accomplish anything, so my best bet here is just trying to go for the ram, but with 4,000 health I will guaranteed be going down. I'd actually be going down faster if the perf loaded AP, but he keeps insisting on the HE. Another attempt, another troll dispersion volley with 4 bounces, hitting his nose even though I aim for his superstructure. Perf, smoke runs out, he gives me full broadside, I try to go for it, but there is absolutely no mercy in the Roma dispersion, and he actually does kill me off with about 5 seconds of the match remaining. The game ends, and I do actually manage to rack up a fair bit of potential damage this game. Almost 200,000 damage, Confederate, Kraken, high caliber. The reason I showed this game is because, well, it showcased a lot of the strengths and the weaknesses. In the enemy Littorio, when he was caught in a brawl and tried to get broadside, you saw just how quickly he died. And then on the other hand, me sitting nose in, well, I was tanking multiple ships for extended periods of time, and they really struggled to do any damage to me whatsoever. Team score wise, 2,700 XP, base XP on a standard battle is always a pretty decent score. More importantly though, if you look at the detailed report, 2.1 million potential. And in fact, if you look at the damage received, the HE damage received is 208 hits, 25k damage. Obviously, this will be different if they have something like a Hindenburg or Yoshino, basically ships that can pen these high armor thresholds. But against most of the standard HE, the Roma or Littorio is extremely resistant, extremely resilient. In fact, the 6 fires, the thing did probably almost more damage. They did more damage than all the 208 HE shells. The bombs did their fair share, of course, but the rockets actually didn't manage to pen my armor at all, with a 0 damage on those. We could have survived if we'd played safer, but then again, I did think my Bismarck would push. Let me show you guys my recommended build for the ship, and more importantly, let me show you why I call this such a lazy design by Wargaming. Right, well, first of all, I mean, Wargaming, the camo is nice and all. The character art is basically just taken directly from Azur Lane. And the reason why I call this such a very, very lazy crossover is this. If you disable the permanent camo, the Azur Lane camo on the Littorio, well, you can actually find this at the back of the ship. This is as copy-paste of a Roma as you can possibly get. They didn't even bother changing the nameplate on the ship itself. They just slapped the permanent camo on top of it, so you couldn't actually make out the nameplate behind it. This is very, very lazy design. This ship has nothing to set it apart from the Roma. It is a carbon copy, besides basically some different colors. The art department had a bit of fun. That's pretty much it. Equipment wise, turret survival, tankiness, better dispersion for whatever it helps, additional tankiness, and better concealment because it is one of your strengths. Captain build wise, we are running the standard battleship captain, which is priority target, adrenaline rush, superintendent, fire prevention, concealment expert, expert loader. I would say run jack of all trades and then expert marksman as the last perk, because having that hilarious turret traverse is actually quite fun. Flag wise, it's pretty straightforward. Reduction in fire, reduction in flooding, more healing, faster speed. After that, you can add in ramming flag, AA, secondaries, whatever you basically want at this point. AA flag is somewhat questionable, of course. You saw just how effective the AA on the ship was. I couldn't defend myself against the tier 6 carrier, so if you're up against tier 8 or, god forbid, tier 10 carriers, the monsters of World of Warships, you're not going to be able to do anything. Regardless though, I hope you guys enjoyed my commentary, and I will talk to you guys later.